G'day everyone, how you going? Welcome back to the Self-Made Podcast, and if you're new here, hi, my name is Jason Shipway. You may know me as Jason Cleans, and I am the person behind this microphone speaking to you right now. So in this podcast, we talk about everything to do with cleaning and the cleaning business, and sometimes other stuff, just whatever I feel like speaking about on the day. And today I feel like speaking about absolutely nothing in particular, but once again, I'll just be extracting thoughts from the depths of my head and hoping that something can resonate with someone. So I think last week I talked about how we had some issues with quality and things like that and how we resolved that. And more recently, I've moved into conflict resolution. That was a big area that I wanted to improve on for myself, not only just in the business, but just in like interpersonal relationships with friends, family, partners, etc. It's especially hard with employees if you don't have good communication skills. Like I don't have good communication skills. I'll be the first to admit that. It's really hard to come to a resolution in any sort of conflict. And we did a deep dive on this with my business coach, and we really took a step back and had a look at why I'm struggling in this area and why my communication skills aren't really up to par. And so I'm going to bring up this photo I took while I was there because we got this all out on the whiteboard. So the main thing that I took away from this meeting was using a communication style that is assertive rather than aggressive or passive. Sorry, that's my computer making noises. And when we kind of dove into it, I realized that I was always being really passive in my interactions with employees. I would always beat around the bush. I would never be direct. I would never have a sense of authority. But, I wouldn't be aggressive. I would be the complete opposite. I was just way too timid and way too passive. And it was because I felt like I didn't want to be mean. I didn't want to disrespect anyone or hurt any feelings. And so a lot of the time I would just tell like a little white lie when I was firing someone or telling someone that they hadn't done great work or they'd missed something. I would always find an excuse or some way around just directly telling the person what I needed to tell them. And I always thought that was a good thing. I figured that, hey, I'm telling them, I'm getting my point across, or I'm getting the thing I want, which is, if I want to fire someone, I'm firing them, but I'm also giving it to them in a way where in their mind, they're leaving on good terms. But I realize that I'm doing a big disservice to that employee. If someone is doing something bad and they might be unaware of it, that they may do some things that you think like, how could anyone possibly not realize that that's bad? But you got to give people the benefit of the doubt, especially when you're an employer. Sometimes people do things that they just don't realize aren't the right thing to do. And so, what I was doing, kind of beating around the bush, not being direct, being very passive, it was letting the employees down. Because, as the employer, I hear things, I get feedback, I have to give people free cleans if things aren't going well, and I kind of cop the brunt of that. But the employee also needs to know, and they need to have an assertive boss that can kind of lay it out for them, but still doing it in a way which is constructive and conveys the actual message that needs to be put across. So that was kind of a big realization for me, in that what I thought I was doing was a good thing by just letting people down easy, telling a little white lie instead of being direct. What I thought was being nice and considerate, it's actually the complete opposite, because that person is going to go to the next job with the same bad habits, and until someone breaks that cycle or at least just talks to them about it, they might not even realize what they're really doing. So that was a big thing for me, realizing that I need to change my communication style from passive to assertive. It's tough for me as someone who, I always, when growing up, I had social anxiety. I found it hard to talk to people, period. But now having this sense of authority and trying to relay that with people and trying to speak from a position of authority is really tough for me. So stepping into this more assertive persona or role, I guess, is a bit tricky for me to navigate. But it might be the same for you. This may resonate with you in some way similar to mine. And something that I'm now finding is helping me understand that a bit more and help me through it is just using the sandwich method, which you may have heard of before. It's basically, in essence, it's cramming a negative thing between two positive things. The meat is the negative thing and the two buns are the positive things. Because when we give someone negative feedback or a negative comment, we need to reinforce it with some sort of positivity so that they're not walking away from the conversation or the conflict unhappy and upset. And so the sandwich method that we need to use as an employer when we're talking to an employee is first compliment. So it can be, you talk to them in a very lighthearted tone. You just give them some sort of compliment. So no matter what the conversation is, if it's a performance review, if it's you've pulled them up because they've done something wrong and you need to correct that, or if they were showing up late, whatever it may be, you can still give them a compliment to start with. So you can say, hey, Kim, just wanted to chat to you. Thanks for all the hard work you do. We really appreciate your efforts. And then you can segue into the problem, which is number 2. That's the meat of this sandwich. So it's very lighthearted. The tone is very, very upbeat. We're not going into it like, thanks for all the work you do. However, we're not talking like that. It's upbeat, it's uplifting, and it's not going to pre-frame the conversation in any negative way and get them to close off, which is what we don't want. So then we go from the compliment into a problem, and that's where we address it. And what I've learned is that I need to be much more direct when I address a problem. So if there's an issue with quality, if they've done a bad clean, you just need to lay it out for them. And we also need to use I messaging instead of you, or just putting the blame on the cleaner instead of just putting something on you. And to give you an example, you could say, very simply, you did this. You didn't do a good clean today. You didn't empty the bin. You missed the spot in the shower. And so that's what I used to do, something like that. I would use you languaging instead of I. But what I learned is from my coach is that I need to be using more I languages. So for an example, if we're saying like you missed this in the shower, or you didn't do a good clean today, you would then say, I feel like you didn't perform your best today, or I feel like the clean you did today wasn't up to standard. And so it's bringing it onto you. And, if you say to the cleaner, the clean you did today was not up to standard, that cleaner is going to say, well, yes, it was. I know it was because I did it, and they get really defensive. If you say, I feel like the clean today was not up to standard, the cleaner can't say, well, you're wrong, because you're speaking about yourself, what you feel. They can't invalidate or correct your own feelings. They can do it when it's put on them if you say you instead of I. So that's a very small change that can really shift the tone of a conversation, and it adds a lot more weight into what you're saying. Because if you use you languaging, if you put it on the cleaner or the employee, they get very defensive very quickly, because in their mind, a lot of the time, they might actually not realize what they've done. If they've done a bad clean, they might not actually realize. They probably left that clean thinking they did a good job. So if you say you did a clean that was not up to standard, or you did this or that, their mind is immediately going into flight mode. It's just, or fight mode. So they might fight back and say, well, no, I did a great job. I know I did. I always do a great job. I was making sure of that. But if you say, I feel like the clean wasn't up to standard, they can't do that. They can't then go and say that, because that's what you're feeling. So that's a very strong, just a tweak you can use in your speech when you're talking to someone. Instead of using you languaging, use I languaging. So that's really good. And we also need to address whose problem is it. So this is another thing that I found really insightful. So when we're going into a conflict, or we're going to have a conversation with someone surrounding a conflict, we need to identify whose problem is it. Is it the cleaner? Is it ours? Is it mine as the employer? Or is it our problem? So an example of a problem that is the cleaners and not us or ours is if they turn up late. That's a problem that they have, that we have no control over, that we have no governance over. That is on them. A problem that is mine as their boss could be something like, not telling them the proper instructions for a job, or not informing them on something they need, or not telling them about this or that. That's my problem. Our problem could be something like a bad clean. It's easy for you to blame the cleaner and, they're the one who did the clean and it was bad, therefore it's their problem. No, it's actually ours, because we need to take responsibility as their employer. From a training standpoint, we're the people who trained them and assessed them and then sent them out on their own to be doing these cleans. So that's actually our problem. They did, yes, a poor clean, but we're the people who let that happen. So think about whose problem it really is. And it's easy to say sometimes that a problem is theirs when in fact it's actually ours. It's actually both parties' problem, and you can both take accountability. So think about that. Obviously, sometimes it's going to be their problem and just their problem. Like I said, if they're turning up late, you need to tell them that, directly. They're an adult. They need to be able to get themselves ready in the morning. They need to be able to stay on top of their own schedule, and you can't help them with that. That is just their problem. So, yeah. Use a style that's assertive rather than passive or aggressive, and really think about this when you talk to not only employees, if you have employees, but even just people in your life, friends, family. Whenever you have an argument, think about if you're being aggressive, passive, or assertive. It's really, really interesting to think about. And because if two people are being aggressive or on the contrary, two people are being passive, you can never come to a resolution. But if someone is being assertive, you can come to a resolution. Or if both people are being assertive, you can use logic, you can use reason, and you can use rationality. But if you're going into a conversation and it's heating up and you can't calm the other person down, it gets to a point where you just need to say, this conversation can't continue until both of us are calm, until both of us are able to just talk calmly and civilly. Even if you're being calm, if the other person's just flipped their lid, you can say, we can't have this conversation until we're both calm. Because again, it's not putting the blame on them. Like there's two sides to this. It takes two to tango. So that's just a way that you can word that a bit nicer too. If you're ever worried about a conversation spiraling, which is why I tend to be very passive in my conflicts, because I'm worried about that happening. You can just try to de-escalate when you see it coming. And then if it gets to a point where it can't de-escalate, if the other person has just completely blown their top, completely flipped their lid, you just say simply like, we can't have this conversation until the two of us are a bit calmer. So yeah, it's tough to navigate this, because this is something that it goes back to my childhood. I've always been like this, and it's generally been okay, but I'm noticing as an employer, there's just times where I'm speaking to people and trying to deal with employees, and I never really understood why I was having issues with this until now, when I've really mapped it out and explored it. So yeah, really interesting session I had with my business coach about that. I'll just recap what I was talking about. So for conflict resolution, we want to have a talking style that is assertive, not passive or aggressive. So think about that next time you're talking to someone or about something difficult, about something uncomfortable. So number one, use a style that is assertive. Number two, identify whose problem it is. Is it their problem? Is it your problem, as in the employee? Is it my problem? Is it our problem? Is it both of us? Okay. Third, address it in a timely manner. So, again, a lot of the time something would happen and I would put it off. I'd be like, oh, it's Friday. I'll bring it up with them on Monday. I won't worry about this over the weekend and I don't want to bother them. Or it would happen on Monday and I'd be like, well, I'll talk to them on Friday because I don't want to say something that upsets them and then they don't work well for the rest of the week. So don't let things spoil. Don't let things go rotten. Address it in a timely manner, which usually is like the same day or it could be the next day, but make sure it gets nipped in the bud straight away if possible, because when you let it go for too long, you just lose all hope of ever coming to some sort of resolution or a solution. So 3, address it in a timely manner. 4, before you talk to someone, write things down. If you know you're going to have a conversation with someone that is going to make you uncomfortable, if it's going to be difficult in nature, if it's something to do with, something that is negative, it's good to just write things down. Write down how you're going to open the conversation. If you're worried about what they're going to say, write down possible answers they might come back with or retorts, and then write down what you would reply to that. And you'll eventually just build up a tree of replies, and you'll realize that it's not as ugly or as difficult as you thought it would be. And a lot of the time, it's going to go off book. It's not going to go as planned. It never does, but that just helps you get a bit more clarity and ease yourself before you go into the conversation, because you've already written some stuff down. And the more you do it, the better you'll get at it. It's just like anything. When you started cleaning, you probably weren't very good. You probably weren't fast. And now you're probably a lot better if you've been doing it for a while. Same thing with riding a bike. First time you ride a bike, you're hopeless. These days, hopefully, you're pretty good at it. So same thing with communication. If you're not good at communicating, it's probably because you don't do it enough. And if you're not doing it enough, you need to be, 1, doing it more, practice it, and also think about what you're doing when you're saying things and when you're talking to people, like what we're doing now. So yeah, write things down. It's a good exercise to do. It's always good to get thoughts out of your head onto paper, just extract it. It's also like, you can talk into your phone and take a voice memo. Just extract these things out of your head so it's not weighing on your conscience and making you anxious and stressed. So yeah, number 4, write things down. Number 5, the sandwich method is it's a very, very well-known thing. People talk about it a lot when it comes to HR and conflict resolution, but that's because it's so powerful. The sandwich method really does work. So sandwich a negative thing in between some positive reinforcement. So when talking to an employee, for example, I say, number 1, compliment them on something, make it lighthearted. Number 2, identify the problem and be direct with it. Don't beat around the bush. Number 3, thank them. Walk away from that conversation thanking them for something, if possible, because the last thing that is spoken about is the thing that they'll take away. It's the thing that they'll remember. So if you leave that conversation very open-ended or in a bad way, or if it was aggressive when it ended and something bad was said at the end, that's what they're going to take away. They're going to walk away with the last emotion they felt in that conversation. So if it can end on a good note with you thanking them and being lighthearted and uplifting, then that is a lot better as well. And lastly, just use I messaging instead of you. So instead of saying you did a bad thing, you would say, I feel like you've done X, Y, Z. Or I feel like the conduct which you've had isn't in alignment with our values or my values. Stuff like that. So that's a pretty good exercise and some good tips you can use to be better at communicating and with conflict resolution. And that doesn't just apply to employees, that applies to all walks of life. That goes for friends, family, if you've got a husband or wife or partner, it applies there as well. I'm sure this can even apply with your dog or your pet somehow. We're all pretty much the same. We're all wired the same. Doesn't matter what person you come across, these things will work in a much better way when dealing with conflict. And any uncomfortable situation, any uncomfortable discussion you have, any uncomfortable thing you have to bring someone up on, whether it be, bad work an employee's done, whether it be something that you're not happy with, like a friend or family member with, the first thing that you might want to do is just run away from it. But if you keep doing that, nothing ever gets resolved. That's what I'd been doing for a long time. And so usually the greatest things happen in situations of discomfort or times of discomfort. So when you feel uncomfortable or nervous or anxious about something, particularly a discussion or a meeting, it's usually a good thing. It's a sign that you're not familiar with it. It's a sign that you're not well versed in it. And it's a sign that if you continue to do it, that feeling of unease and stress will slowly but surely go away. You just need to keep at it. And just like anything, you need to practice it and constantly do it Just keep communicating, keep working on it, because it is a skill and it's something that you can learn. Don't feel like because you are a certain way, that's who you are. That's how I felt for a long time. But as I know now, I am the catalyst for my own change. I can do this, and I can overcome these fears and these anxieties and different things that I have. So yeah, that was a really great session that I had with my business coach. And that same day, actually, I contacted an employee that I'd been kind of putting off talking to for a while, and we got on the phone and I addressed some things, and I actually had to fire this lady. But it went a lot better than I had anticipated. And it's because I went into this conversation with these ideas and these tips and strategies in mind. And it made me a lot calmer, because I knew that I had a framework to fall back on. And I knew that I was following a system, because a system in communication, while it sounds silly, is it's really helpful. And yeah, it ended up being a great call. I fired someone, but I walked away from that conversation feeling great. And I know the other person did as well, because it was actually a very good discussion. And it was someone who I thought was just kind of, taking us for a ride and not intentionally doing bad work and all these different things. But, she actually wasn't that. She just wasn't a good fit for us. And we discussed that, and it was a very healthy and progressive conversation. So very happy with that. But that aside, we've been doing very well. The team is growing steadily. We just signed a big new contract as well, which I think I may have talked about in the last episode. And we're starting that next week, I believe. We lost a couple of clients. As some of you may know, I think I talked about this before. We cleaned for Amart, the big furniture store. They just wrapped up their cleaning contract with us. I think they're taking their cleaning in-house. So, Amart is all their services are facilitated by a service company. So if you think about it, like all the Amart stores in Australia are managed by a big service management company. This management company gets them cleaners. It gets them, like if they need a handyman, they send them out. They deal with that, all that sort of stuff. If they need bin removal, if they need waste management, the service management company does that. I think a nationwide, they might be taking it in-house or doing something else. So we're wrapping up with that contract, which sucks and it's unfortunate, but we just signed a massive new contract. So we're looking forward to that. And I'll be going down to Bunbury again next week to check in on the team and get that up and running. So that's very exciting. And yeah, we're just moving at a very steady, very good pace at the moment. We had a not so great month just last month where we lost a lot of clients, and we didn't go backwards, but we didn't go forwards. So we just plateaued that month. But this month we put on a lot of new work, and even though we've lost a couple of clients, we're still very, very far ahead and things are looking really good. So I've also structured a new bonus system for my manager, Stacey. She's now getting some very nice bonuses on top of her already good salary, which she is ecstatic about. She's the type of person who, I could pay her probably a third of what she's getting now and she would be happy, because she's just really part of the team. She's really part of the vision and the mission, and money is not the main focus for her. So that's a 1 in a billion sort of person, and I'm really, really fortunate to have found her. So yeah, make sure you take care of your people, because without them, what are you? You know what I mean? There's a lot of ego in business where people think that they are the sole reason the business is doing well. I try not to be that person at all. In fact, I'm the complete opposite. I always doubt myself. I'm always fearful that I can't do it on my own, even though looking back, I pretty much did it on my own. So it's funny how the mind works. I think a lot of people in business have that sort of anxiety in the back of their mind, but it just never really comes out. They don't really talk about that. But what I found is, a lot of people in business are very, very scarce. They have a scarce mindset, and they have a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress that kind of just builds up. But stress can be a good motivator. If you listen to my podcast with Stacey, she said that stress is a very big motivator for her, and she thrives on stress, which is it resonated with me a lot because I definitely thrive on stress too. I work best when I'm under pressure. And yeah, so that's all. It's all going great. The business is good. I'm just going to take a quick break and drink some water, and I'll be back in a sec. All right, we're back. Self-made. It is me again. That's the first time I've ever taken a break in a podcast. We're starting to do longer podcasts because I know people like them, and I'm getting a bit more confident speaking for longer on my own. It's really easy, when I've got people like Mrs. Muscle, King's Cleaning, Megan, I've got Stacey to talk to. It's really easy for me to talk for hours and hours to someone. But when I'm talking just by myself, it's hard for me to keep the ball rolling. It's hard for me to keep spinning a yarn, but I'm definitely getting better at it. And, like I was saying earlier in this episode, if you do something for long enough, you just get better at it. We were just talking about how if you're a bad communicator, if you just think about what you're doing and you practice it, you'll inevitably get better. It's like the same with this podcast. When I started it, I felt hopeless. I felt like I had no idea what I was doing. And then I would compare myself to other podcasts. And I was like, why can I not do what this person's doing? Why do I lack the ability to speak for hours and hours on end without any sort of, without direction or with direction, sorry. And just go off the cuff, because that's what I do. I don't really write stuff down. In fact, I don't think I have written anything down before. I just really just turn on the microphone, I press the red record button, and I go at it. So it's just an example of, and it just goes to show that, you do something for long enough and you will just get better at it. Same thing goes for business in general. Most people quit way, way too early. And it's like, if you just stick at it, it's like anything, you will get better. If I go bowling a lot. People think that's the nerdiest thing about me. I go 10-pin bowling. When I started, I was terrible. Never thought I would be as good as I am now. And I'm now at the point where I can bowl a perfect game. I've scored 300. And it's like I started doing this a year ago or 2 years ago. And it's just insane to think how far I've come in 2 years just bowling. I know it sounds ridiculous, but my point stands. If you're bad at something, it's really I thought I would never be able to get good at podcasting. I never thought I'd be able to talk for more than 15 minutes by myself, just off the cuff. Even with a bit of preparation, it's hard for me. But now I'm getting better and better, and hopefully I'll be able to just talk for 3 hours nonstop. I think we're getting to that point, but who the hell would want to listen to that? Anyway, I've been trying to get some guests on. I'm just trying to figure out who to get on first. I reached out to Angela Brown. I think she's a bit busy at the moment, but she knows me and obviously I know her. So hopefully we'll tee that up at some point. I know Mrs. Muscle and King's Cleaning, Scott and Gabby, they're both keen to do some podcasts again with me, just like one-on-one stuff or one-on-two in the case of Kings. And that'll be really fun. That'll be really awesome. So let me know on Instagram or wherever you can contact me, like on TikTok. Just let me know what sort of people you'd like me to get on here. If you have any names in particular, just let me know and I'll see if I can get them on the podcast and talk to them, because I would really love to talk to more people in the industry and just get to know people's stories, share experiences, learn from other people's mistakes, learn what's working for other people, and just get an insight to what they're doing and what their lives are like, and how we can compare our journeys, and just track and measure. I think that'll be really cool, and just to have a conversation with someone that you can listen to while you clean. Because I think this is the bigger vision I had for this podcast, is that when I used to clean by myself all the time, it gets lonely, and you want to be able to just, if you're solo, the coolest thing would be able to just clone yourself and clean with you and just talk to yourself as a friend. Because a lot of the time I found myself just talking to myself. It's like, I wish I could just clone myself. It's like if you could have your best friend come and clean with you, if they could actually do a good job, how cool would that be? You can just have fun and talk to them the whole time. But, we can't really do that. So my vision for this podcast was I wanted to be this thing where you could go in and clean and you could just listen to this the whole time, and it would be like someone who knows what you're doing, someone who is on the same path as you, just talking in your ear and kind of keeping you company through your own clean, something like that. It sounds cheesy, but that was my vision for this podcast when I started, and also just to help people, because that's why I talk about a lot of strategies and tips in this. I just love to help people. I know it can sound disingenuous, especially coming from just a guy from TikTok, but I know there's a lot of grifters out there who say they want to help people, but they're really just in it for the money. And we do know people like that. I've met people in the industry who are like that. And I know it's cliche, but I really just want to help people. I don't identify as being one of those people who's just in it for the money. I make plenty of money from my cleaning business. You can ask Stacey. I pay her way more than I need to. I don't even take a salary from the cleaning business. I make money from other stuff. And yeah, I'm not in this for the money. I make way more money than I ever had hoped for when I started. And I'm very happy and very content. The only regret I have is buying an expensive car and then crashing it 8 weeks later. That's the only big purchase I've ever made, and I lost it after 8 weeks. That was a very dumb, very, very dumb thing. And a little update there. It's been, how long has it been? 5 months since my car accident. I've still not bought a new car. I'm not really interested. I'm just interested in growing my businesses, really just going all in, and I'm keeping a lot of cash in the bank until I figure out what I want to do with it. I've got a few options that I'm looking at. So I can franchise. I've got a few contacts who want to explore that opportunity with me and talk more about franchising. I can move somewhere and start a new location. I can find an existing business and acquire it, purchase it, and then rebrand it to Enhanced and then grow it from there. Or I can spend a lot more time growing the school, Booked Out Cleaners. So I've got options. I'm not sure what I really want to lean into yet. The school is something I like to do on the side. It's not something that takes a lot of my time. It's quite cruisy. I'm just putting out one module a month, doing the weekly call, which is like an hour, and just answering questions here and there, which I just enjoy anyway. I love doing the weekly calls. I don't even consider that work. I just love doing it. I love talking to other cleaners and helping people and just bouncing ideas. And the community's really evolved into something that it's not even just dependent on me. There's people in there answering questions on a consistent basis. There's probably 5 people in there who always answer people's questions and actually give really helpful and insightful and constructive answers. And it's amazing that we've now got this community where everyone is just there to help each other. It's really something special, and I love the direction that it's heading in. So I would love to grow it, but I would hate to lose that real tight-knit community aspect of it. And I don't just want to grow it for the sake of money. I really don't want to lose that heart and soul that it's got. I think it's really valuable, really invaluable, actually. You can't put a price on that. That is not a tangible asset. That is not something that you can just create. It's something that is conjured by the spirit and the tenacity of the community itself. And it's just not something that is formulatic. And I'm really appreciative for the direction that it's headed in and for where we've gotten to now. Booked Out Cleaners, if you're not already in it, definitely would recommend considering joining. It's a low price monthly fee, and you get access to the community full of people asking and answering questions. You get access to the classroom, which is all the modules from how to start a business, how to grow, how to hire staff, how to advertise, how to write ads, all that stuff. It's also got weekly Q&A calls with me, and you also get direct access to message me whenever you need if you've got a question or a problem or just want an opinion. And it's all there for a monthly fee, which is not even much. It's less than $100 a month to get access to all of that. And from the feedback we've gotten, people are loving it. And even just we're not losing many members, which is something I look at as well, because you know me, I'm a numbers guy. Even though I'm not very good at maths, I like to track numbers, and from what I've seen inside the school, Booked Out Cleaners is not losing many people, which is great. So yeah, just a shameless little plug for our community there. If you want to join, it's bookedoutcleaners.com/join, I think. or just click the link in my bio on TikTok or Instagram to join that. So yeah, that's really cool. And we're coming out with the first hiring module this month. So we've done a lot of modules already. We have not done one on hiring yet, but that's coming. And so I just finished creating my 7-step hiring process and mapping that out. It's always interesting. I have things in my business where I haven't mapped it out before. There's some things that are still in my head, but like the bit by bit process is like, the 7-step hiring process. I've got the first, second, third, fourth, and so on steps all mapped out, but I haven't actually brought them together and created like a flow chart and visualized it. So there's some things that I'm creating for the first time, which is cool for me, and it's good for my own business because I've now got that as something I can refer back to. It's now another framework inside the business, and it's something I'll be sharing with the community. So yeah, that's something to look forward to. But yeah, I haven't really had too much on my mind lately that I wanted to talk about on this podcast because I want this to be a very unfiltered podcast where I talk about anything. I've already dove into a few topics that were, pretty personal, but I just like to be unfiltered and talk about my life kind of uncensored. So yeah, but no, life has been quite cruisy lately. And when I say life, I mean the business, because my business is just an extension of my life. But no, the business has been very cruisy. There isn't really much to talk about there. We just did a little bit of housekeeping, trimmed a bit of fat off the edges, and got things under control. So yeah, I'm trying to really focus on my health now at the moment. It's something that I kind of let fall by the wayside. After my car accident, I was going to the gym every day. I was eating perfectly. I had my accident and it was like a big reset to me. I'm a creature of habit. So when I broke those habits in my recovery from the accident, I found it very hard to get back into it. And I just found myself saying like, oh, I'll go back tomorrow, or I'll start eating right next week. And I just didn't. I think we're all guilty of that to some degree in some areas, but I'm finally back on that. I'm really disciplining myself now with, going to the gym, eating right, and just thinking right, making sure I have a clear mental, because when we're not at our highest self, if we're not at our peak performance as an individual, it's going to show in the business, and it's going to perpetuate in ways that aren't good, not only for you, but for the business too. The business is going to grow with you. So if you're doing well in your own spiritual and health journey, health and well-being journey, the business is also going to do well alongside you, because we can't grow a business if we're not growing as an individual. And I think that's really important. So yeah, and also just taking care of yourself, period. Just, it's bar none. There is nothing more important than that. You probably have people in your life that you want to take care of as well. If you can't take care of yourself first, you can't take care of other people either. So it's like being on a plane. They tell you in the safety briefing, if there is an emergency and masks come down from above, you need to put yours on before you can even think about helping someone else put theirs on. Same thing in business. You want to make sure you help yourself before you're able to help your staff or your clients. You need to be at your highest performing self in order to be able to provide and serve the people around you. So yeah, I've started eating right and just feeling better. I didn't realize, I kind of forgot how much of an impact diet has on your mental well-being and just your clarity and focus. I was just not feeling right. I just wasn't feeling like myself. And I didn't realize until I fixed my diet again that was a really big factor in all of it. So I'm cutting out added sugar. That's the main thing. I'm trying to test this new thing where I do like a 1-day fast a week, or even a 2-day fast, because there's a lot of good science that backs the idea of fasting and that it can be good for you. And you just do like a weekly or a monthly fast where you just cleanse your body, You get rid of all the bad cells, all the fat cells that you don't need, all the bad bacteria. Your body just eats it all away. I think that's a cool thing that I want to explore. So I'm going to try to do like a 1-day fast every week, see how I feel, just track and measure my results there as I do in everything. And then that might be a new thing for me. So I might do my fast this week on Thursday. So it's Tuesday now. I might not eat on Thursday and see how that goes. I used to do a lot of intermittent fasting, and I found that was good too. I felt that was when I was probably the fittest I've ever been. I was in incredible shape around the time I was doing intermittent fasting. So that might be something I go back to. But yeah, just thinking about how I can optimize my health, because I really haven't been taking care of myself as much as I should have. And to some people, it might sound a bit crazy, but to me, I think it's paramount. I think health and well-being is the forefront of anything good in life. I think it's what comes first. You've got health, you've got wealth, and you've got relationships. Those are the 3 pillars in your life. Most people usually excel in one of those things, if any. So, you might have wealth, but you might not have good health or relationships. Some people might have good relationships and poor health and wealth. We want to try to excel in all 3 categories. So, myself, I've got wealth, I've got pretty good relationships. I'm working on that. I'm trying to connect with the people around me a bit better and just be a better person to be around, be more present in people's lives. And then health as well, just thinking about how I can do better there, because we're not doing a great service to ourselves if we're not taking care of our body, because our body really is a temple. And as you know, if that temple goes without cleaning for a long time, it's going to get out of hand and it's going to become a lost cause. So take care of your temple, make sure it's cleaned. It's very on brand for us with what we do. And yeah, it might sound a little bit crazy, and I get that. I sometimes see crazy diets that people do and crazy things that people do, and I'm like, what the hell are you doing? Like, this is just ridiculous. But I'm at that stage in life where I'm just trying things. I'm just experimenting, seeing what happens, and then making adjustments where needed. And I do that in business with like advertising, with systems. I always just put it out there. I try things, and then based on the feedback I get, based on the results, I'll tweak it, try something else, or just completely scrap it all together. And that's kind of just how I do things. So I just looked at the time, and we are now 42 minutes in, I think. Yeah, 42 minutes in. So it's been probably the longest solo episode I've done. Hopefully I haven't rambled too much. Hopefully I haven't lost anyone. I try not to go on too much of a tangent sometimes, but I can quickly derail myself if I'm not focused. So hopefully you've enjoyed this episode. I am going to try to keep doing these long solo episodes, and I'll try to mix it up and do some interviews here and there once I just lock down a few people and get times right, because busy people are busy, and usually the successful people that I want to talk to are very busy. So once I can figure out some times, and once we can match schedules up with everyone, I'll try to line up some interviews, and we'll get some really, really cool content pumping. So the future of Self-Made is looking very, very bright. It's looking very good. So yeah, excited for that. And yeah, thank you for listening to this episode. Let me know what you think of it. Let me know if you want to hear more like this, if you don't mind the longer form episodes, or if you'd prefer me just to do like a short episode and really just hone in on one certain topic rather than talking about a bunch of different things. So yeah, hope you're having a good day, evening, or whatever, wherever you are in the world. And I will talk to you soon. Bye for now.